Get seated in your nice posture. Welcome, a new month. So we are into a new theme this month with our financial health and how Pilates will relate to our finances. So we're going to relate it to the economy of our movement practices. The same way we would have a budget for our finances, we would budget how we're moving and working more efficiently. So come on and get settled. We'll start with a little chat. Please feel free to welcome and type anything in the chat as we move along. And we'll move on to our first slide as you're getting settled, is just our little inspirational quote. So we've got from Mr. Pilates, never do 10 pounds of exercise for a 5-pound movement. So don't overexert or spend energy where you don't need to. Just work with the muscles that are necessary or required for each exercise. And again, feel free to let me know if you've heard any of these phrases in the chat, if you've done other workouts and maybe had personal trainers that are drill sergeants screaming at you, but about more is more reps, no pain, no gain, feel the burn, that kind of mentality is the opposite of what the philosophy we use in Pilates is more of about a quality over quantity approach. So there's a lot fewer repetitions, but we're really focusing on attention to detail and technique and your form. So if we were to compare that analogy to, say, your doctor gives you a prescription for antibiotics to heal an infection, and usually it's like you have to take them for at least 7 days, so 3 pills a day for 7 days, and that will hopefully, and you think, well, no, I want to get rid of this faster. I'm going to take all 21 pills in 2 days, and then I'll knock it out of my system and I'll be all better. But that can have a lot of negative side effects, and that's why they tell us to take it slowly over time, and it'll gradually get rid of the infection, because we don't want to have the negative side effects of that the medications can cause. And so it's the same thing when we apply that to our exercise. If we overexert ourselves or overtrain, it can lead to delayed muscle onset, which is soreness the next day when you feel like you've done a million squats and leg day and you can't walk the next day, or you can't squat on the toilet to get up. Or if we've done a heavy arm day and you can barely lift your arm to get that cup of coffee. So that's not ideal for movement practices going forward for a lifestyle change. And Pilates is that we want to be able to do it every day, keep moving in our body. The other idea about that is if we have a negative experience with exercise, then the likelihood of us continuing it, sticking with that program and coming back and doing it the next day or the next week or for 5 years is less likely unless we have a positive experience where we feel energized and our body feels good. We eliminate stress on our joints and release back pain, then we're more likely to continue with that program. So how does this relate to our financials? Well, if we are economizing and keeping our budget intact, we want to do the same thing with our movement, like I was saying at the beginning. I just saw a little thing there. Yeah, Joseph Pilates. Joseph Pilates was his name, and actually his when he was alive and teaching this method, he called it contrology. So the art of controlling your muscles. And then it was after he died and people continued his work that it got rebranded as his namesake. We'll just go on to our next slide. There's another little sort of theme there as we move into it. So I've broken this week down, or this month down, into a couple different sections, and we're going to focus this week on mobility and stability. So with each exercise, there's a body part or parts that we're trying to stabilize and not move. It's usually centered around our core stability. And then there's limbs or legs or arms and stuff that we are moving. And so it's breaking down each exercise and sort of watching to go, what part should I be moving? Which parts should be stable? Where am I putting energy where I don't need it? So keep that in mind as we're learning the exercises this week. And we'll go on to our next slide. We'll just give you the names of the exercises if that's helpful for you to see. But as we go through them, we'll keep the video on me so you can see. There's a lot of lower body on this one. We will do some more upper body, but I thought I'll stick with the theme so you feel each movement where we're trying to stabilize a bit more. So let's head down onto the mat if you want to join me. Feel free. And just make sure I'm centered there. Okay, so the hip release is more of a warm-up exercise that we're going to be, I always think of this as turning a key, turning your leg inside the hip socket. So if you're turning a key in the door, the key is turning, but the door or the doorknob itself is stable. So if we think of our pelvis and our trunk as the door, a nice stable door, I'm in my neutral pelvis so that hip bones or pubic bone are lined up level to the floor, and there's that natural arch in my back. So when I'm neutral, it doesn't mean I'm relaxed. My deep lower abdominal muscles are active. And then I'm going to just open one knee, like turning that key, and slide the foot away, and then exhale as I slide the foot back in. So as I'm moving that one leg, I'm moving my left leg. My right leg is staying still, it's staying parallel. My right hip especially is helping control that. So notice as you're doing it, if when you open your knee, does your whole pelvis and body turn to the side with it? Or are you able to keep your hip bones straight on facing the ceiling? Let's use the same leg, but just reverse the direction. So I'm going to inhale, slide the foot away. Exhale as you bend your knee back in. So breathing in to send the weight of the leg away. Exhale as you pull it back in. And it's really that turning outwards rotation of the leg that pulls on the opposite side of the abs. Let's try the other side. So I'm going to inhale, open the knee and slide out. Exhale to bend. And breathe in through your nose, slide the foot away. So you're just picturing that leg inside the hip joint is rotating, which helps to lubricate that joint. Let's go the reverse direction. Breathe in, slide. Exhale, rotate as it pulls in. And you may feel a difference from one side to the other. There's always one side that's a little stronger or maybe a little bit more mobile. So if we go back to the thought of our mobility and stability here, we're stabilizing our trunk, but especially our pelvic bones, and just moving our thigh bone, rotating. So that's a nice little loosening up, warm up exercise for our hip joints. Now I'm going to go into the one leg circle. So it's exactly as it sounds. The one leg is in the air and it's going to circle around. So here the mover is the leg and the stabilizer is the pelvis again, very similar to the last one. We're just taking it up a notch. If your hamstrings are tight, the back of your thigh feels a lot of stretch there, you can keep that knee bent. But see if you're able to straighten the bottom leg. It helps to act as an anchor. Same concept here. I want my hip bones to be stable. And then I'm going to inhale as I start my circle. And then exhale to lift that leg back up. So inhale opens the leg. It's a very similar concept to that last one. It's like your leg is a spoon in the pot, stirring the pot of your pelvis. And that pot is stable on the stove. The hips don't rock and roll. I'm breathing in, opening, exhale to cross the middle. So if we had a paintbrush on our toes, we're drawing a nice circle on the ceiling, not a D shape, not a semicircle, it is a full circle. Let's try the same leg reversed. So inhale across the middle, exhale to lift the leg open. The hardest part of the circle is when the leg goes out away from your body. That's where you might feel things want to twist. So maybe you have to hold back on the size of your circle for the starting out as we're figuring things out. But just be aware the real working side of the core is actually the opposite side of the leg. That's where I'm pulling back, holding on. Try one more. Breathe in, exhale, lift. And then we'll try the other side. So feel your tailbone's neutral. And again, if you feel a lot of tightness in the leg as you take your leg up, you can keep that knee bent. Breathe in as you circle in, exhale as you circle out. And again, one side might feel different from the other. It usually takes one or two to figure out your range of motion. And just do a little check-in with the rest of your spine. So our head should be centered, looking up at the ceiling, trying to feel both shoulder blades resting on the mat. So we're not holding any extra tension in the neck or shoulders that we don't need. And let's at the top reverse that leg. Inhale as you open, exhale, let it cross the middle. So really good exercises for hip mobility, but it is a core exercise trying to stabilize through those lower abs. Breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And one more. And then you can just bend both knees in. If you need a little break, you can rock and roll, massage your back. We're going to head over onto our stomach, and this one is called the single leg kick. So there's ways to break it down. I'm just going to show you first the leg movement itself, and then we can progress it into a little bit more core exercise. So feel free, because we're face down, you can watch first. Once I get down there, I'm just going to be keeping my forehead resting on the mat, and I'm keeping my neutral pelvis, again, those hip bones, pubic bone, pressing into the floor. So glutes are active here, abs are lifted, and then I'm doing a double hamstring curl where I point, flex, and then lower. And point, flex, lower. So I'm going to alternate sides. You can keep your forehead down on your hands. I'm keeping my chin up just so I'm talking into the mic a bit more there. So exhale twice and inhale to straighten. And if it's too much coordination to think of that pointing and flexing, don't worry about that. Think more about that hamstring curl. So here our moving part is that knee joint and ankle joint, if you can manage that foot movement. But our pelvis and low back should be really stable. So for some of us, it might feel like a bit of a quad stretch, or you might feel some hamstring work. But hopefully this one isn't too challenging for most of us. And so to take it up a notch, what I can do is go up onto my forearms into more of a plank position. I call it a semi-plank, because I've got my pelvis, my pubic bone on the floor, my glutes are squeezing that down, and my abs are lifting my hip bones up. So I'm not up on my knees in a kneeling plank, but I'm squeezing the tailbone forward. Now from here, that same goal, point, flex with your hamstring curl. And you might feel that a little bit more through the hamstrings, but also what can happen is popping up, arching the back, or sagging down. So I don't have my belly on the floor. I want to lift my abs up, but my glutes are keeping my pubic bone down. So a little tricky plank position to manage there. But the essence of the exercise is the same. I'm keeping my pelvis stable as I move that knee joint. Good. And you can rest back down. So it is a little bit of a back extension there. Take a little shell stretch back. Nice deep breath. And then we'll roll up. And then we're going to move over onto our side. So side lying leg lifts now. When we're lying on your side, try and find a straight line from your toes all the way through up to your head. So one long straight line lying on your side of your body is the narrower part, so it can feel a little bit tippy or wobbly, and that's normal. So you can use this hand, the top hand, for a light touch for balance. Just again, be aware that that's not the muscle group that's stabilizing me. So what's going to hold me stable is through my abdominal, my core, and a little bit of glutes there as well. So this is just more for feedback. If I am falling, it's going to catch me. Here I want to keep those hip bones pointing straight ahead, so not letting them rotate up to the ceiling. And then same with my kneecaps, I'm pointing them straight ahead as I do a side leg lift and then flexing it down. So similar to the ones we did lying on our back, I'm trying to keep my hip bones really stable as I move this thigh bone up and down. So what can happen, people try and get a bigger range of motion by adding their hips, their pelvis, rocking and rolling, so shortening in their waist. Again, I'm trying to keep my trunk stable and just move the leg, which means then I'm working these muscles here on the outside of my thigh. I'm doing a little point and flex there as well, but don't worry about that. The essence of the exercise is this upper thigh movement into your glutes. So just notice how that feels. If you feel like you're not using this hand very much, I like to take the hand on the hip, and that way I can feel where my hips are in space. Another way people will try and make this movement bigger than we need to, not economizing the movement, is turning out their knee to the ceiling and high kicking that leg up. But that's a totally different exercise, different muscle group. So if I'm rotating my kneecap to the front, there's a maximum range of motion I can get if I'm stable with my hips and parallel with my leg. And that really targets this outer hip. So let's try those on the other side, and we'll see if there's any differences between your right and left. So I always just look down, I check that my feet line up with my hips, and then I bring my upper body into place. So start with the hand on the floor just as you get going, as you get things set up. And you're pointing on the way up, flexing on the way down. And if things feel stable, maybe you could take that hand away. It is good feedback. So if I take the hand away and I roll, I know, oop, I've maybe gone too far, or I need to engage my abs more. You can figure out, sort of self-correct as you do those. And so I'm inhaling as I lift the leg, exhale to lower. And it's sometimes hard to see for yourself. You can sort of check and look down, but if I do that the whole time, then the alignment of my spine is off. So mirrors are helpful, or having a teacher or a friend in front of you to look at things and check that we're lined up. Let's do one more. Hopefully we're feeling that on that outside hip, outer thigh. So if you were, you can just bend that knee in, give it a little stretch there. All right, so our next one is still a little bit of lower body, and you may have seen this before. Some physios will call this a bird dog, but in Pilates we call it our swimming prep, because it's a progression from our swimming exercise on the floor. So I'm going to be in my neutral box position. Really think of yourself as a table here. So your limbs, your two arms and your two legs are the limbs of the table right underneath your trunk. And if I were to take a base of support away from my table, it might collapse or tip over. So I need to make sure before I move a limb that the core muscles around that joint are really engaged. So if I'm lifting an arm, I want to feel my upper back and the supporting shoulder. I'll show you from this side. This supporting arm is braced so it doesn't collapse into the joint. So let's just start with our arms, because we haven't done any upper body today. And we're going to lift one arm and then place it down. And then the other arm. So I exhale as I lift. And our goal here is to have complete stability in our trunk, so that, especially in our shoulders right now. But sometimes our body will compensate and go, oh, you're taking away some support. Let's shift your weight over to the side to help balance you out. And our goal is to make our core muscles hold the weight that was on that arm or leg, so that we don't do any shifting. Let's try it just the legs. So I'm going to take one leg out behind me. It doesn't have to go high. Think more again about what's moving and what shouldn't be moving, what we're trying to stabilize. So exhale as we lift up. Inhale as we come down. Exhale, engage the abs before you pick it up. What happens with the legs is that the legs are much heavier than the arms, and it can make the lower back or the belly sag. So I have to really concentrate on lifting my abdominal wall. What I use as an image here is a campfire, a flame under my tummy. So I'm trying to keep my abs pulled up away from the heat of the campfire. If that's feeling confident, you can do one arm in the opposite leg. Balance there, and then come back in. Exhale as we pick everything up. Find your balance, and then come back in. So this isn't an exercise where we have to do a lot of repetitions quickly. We want to go slowly, feel the balance, feel the work through the core, and then come back down. Again, it's hard to see or tell for yourself, am I moving, am I shifting? When I'm by myself, if you have lighting that helps, what I'm really doing is watching my shadow on the floor. So as I lift, I can see if my shadow is shifting over to the side. So that's one way you can do your own self-correction. It just depends on the lighting in the room. I think I got all the exercises I wanted to cover today. Yeah, so let's come on back and regroup. And let me know if you have any questions on any of those or anything you want to see again. I just got a little review slide. We can pull up our last slide there. Good. Okay, so with each exercise that we looked at, we're looking at which body parts are the moving, and today it was mostly the legs was the moving part, and which parts we're trying to stabilize. And then as you're sort of running through the exercise, self-assessing, look at where you might be holding tension. Are you holding your breath? Are you holding neck tension or shoulder tension? So try and release that tension by using our breathing. We didn't do a lot of breath work today, but we did do a lot of work on that last month. So thinking of using the exhale to engage our powerhouse and letting any tension drip out of your shoulders and upper body. So yes, it is challenging. It's mentally challenging, but it's also physically when you really think about what body parts you're trying to use. And you can take this idea, concept, technique into your other workouts. So when you're working out in the gym or doing any weights or anything, really think about, if I'm doing an overhead press with my arms are the movers, but what other, am I moving my shoulders? Am I moving my spine? What other body parts are getting involved? Trying to stabilize that. And maybe that means you have to lower the weight until you get that under control, and then you can build up the strength from there. But then you know you're definitely using the right muscles, that you're strengthening the right muscles and not overexerting energy with the wrong muscles. So hopefully things for you to think about there. And I just want to also say before we sign off, or any of you leave, next week I am away. So there won't be a Thursday class with me. I will see you in 2 weeks. All right. But thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I'll see you next week, or in 2 weeks.